Germany has never been promoted as a dream. It was sold as a deal. You don't get rich quick, but you are safe. That's the promise that so many people have built their lives around. And for a long time, it was true. Today, the numbers from the outside still look good. Germany remains one of the strongest economies in Europe, but beneath, something strange is happening. People with decent jobs, stable careers, and long work histories are feeling financially cornered for the first time, not because of luxuries, but because of basic things. Rent, energy, insurance, traffic, real income is declining, and more Germans admit they are worried about making ends meet. That's not panic, that's a warning sign. And the question many people are quietly asking themselves is not, is Germany failing? But it's a much more uncomfortable question. Why has living here suddenly become so difficult, even when you've done everything right? And the answer starts from your home. A 60 square meter apartment. Not expensive, no nice view. Just enough space for 2 adults, a small dining table, and most importantly, the feeling that you can plan your life. In Germany, many people used to think that was a normal standard of living. That makes sense. And for many years, it was enough to reassure people that they were on the right track. But in recent years, that normalcy has begun to slip away, very quietly. Since 2023, housing rents in Germany's 8 largest cities have increased by over 50%. And in the period 2023 to now, new asking rental prices nationwide increased by about 50%. With some major cities seeing increases of up to 70%, it sounds like a normal economic figure. But for working people, it means something very specific. You are no longer at the right entry point for this market. A friend of mine, 47 years old, who has been working full-time in Berlin for over 10 years, said this to me when his old lease ended. It's not that I don't have enough money, I just don't have enough of a safety margin to feel like I'm living well. Berlin is an easy-to-understand example. The income needed to afford a typical private rental is around 67,600 euros per year, while the median after-tax salary is only about 37,800 euros. That difference isn't something that can be made up with a little extra effort. It's a sign that this market has gotten too far ahead of your earnings. And when housing takes up most of the budget, everything else automatically shrinks. Fewer vacations, less shopping, and family planning is postponed. And the idea of accumulation, which was once the foundation of German middle-class life, began to seem luxurious. The OECD once warned that up to 40% of households in Germany could end up spending more than 40% of their income on rent. If you live long enough, you understand that number doesn't make you poor right away, but it makes every mistake dangerous. Just a small shock, a heating bill increase, a broken car, a few weeks of illness, and the family budget starts to crack. And this isn't just about rising prices, but also about a lack of supply. Germany is estimated to be short about 1.4 million apartments. When there's such a shortage, housing is no longer just a place to live. It became a way for society to silently categorize who gets to stay close to the center and who is forced to move far away. Those with old contracts can keep their positions. Whoever enters a new market must accept the new rules of the game. Recently, many Germans have said something like this. Sometimes you don't need to change cars to know you've been downgraded. Just renew your lease. Now I want to ask you, in your city, what percentage of your income is considered a reasonable rent right now? And when did you notice the change? Please leave a line under your comment. We read everything. And if you find this type of analysis resonates with what you're going through, subscribing to the channel is also fine. It's not because of the algorithm, because we're going to need more straight, calm conversations like this. And as the cost of staying increases faster than the ability to earn a living, The question is no longer how to live, but whether this system is still for anyone, because if the roof has become a burden, the next question almost answers itself. Where are the jobs and income, which once made mighty Germany strong, headed? If you've ever lived in a German industrial town, you'll understand this feeling. Not a big city, not Berlin or Munich, but rather places that revolve around a factory, car companies, component factories, machine shops, or the supply chains behind them. For decades, there has been a very German sense of reassurance. You don't get rich quick, but if you work hard, you can have a stable job, a house, and most importantly, a reliable long-term plan. People buy houses not for investment, but for a very simple reason. I will work here until I retire. That is the foundation of the German model. The problem is, that foundation relies almost entirely on exports. When the world still wanted to buy German cars, machinery, and technology, everything ran smoothly. But as the global economy slowed, competition increased, and energy costs soared. That machine began to sputter, not noisily, not catastrophically, but very real. In 2016, Germany reached its peak with a trade surplus of approximately $310 billion. That number used to be a source of national pride. But for workers, what matters isn't the peak, but the subsequent downward trend. Recently, it has been estimated that nearly 500,000 jobs in Germany are at risk. For you, that's not just statistics. It's a message in the colleague group. It's the notice board hanging at the factory gate. It's the familiar saying, who knows what next year will bring? Jobs that were once considered safe, especially in the automotive industry, are starting to feel precarious. Not everyone is losing their job, but a lot of people are losing their sense of certainty. And when that feeling disappears, life changes in a very specific way. You're starting to think more carefully before spending. You postponed the home renovation, postponed the car exchange, postponed plans that were once considered obvious. Additionally, there are energy costs. After recent shocks, electricity and heating bills are no longer a familiar fixed expense, but something people have to check every month. A survey shows that 45% of households had to cut back on non-essential spending just to pay for electricity and heating during the past winter. For industrial workers, this hits a sensitive spot. The feeling that even though you still go to work every morning, follow discipline, and contribute, the ground beneath your feet is no longer as stable as before. A dry, sarcastic remark. Just one sentence. Back then, people checked their watches to see if it was quitting time. Now, they check the news to see if their factory is mentioned. The question I want to leave you with is this. When income is no longer certain and the cost of living becomes increasingly unpredictable, how will society react? That's when another topic naturally and inevitably began to come to the forefront. But before we get there, let's take a pause. In the next part, the question will no longer be purely economic, but rather the resilience of society when pressure accumulates long enough. There's a very familiar feeling, if you live in Germany long enough. It's not anger, it's tiredness. Longer wait times at the administrative office, waiting longer for the doctor. Finding a school for my child is harder, and everything comes with the same answer. The system is overloaded. Many people talk about immigration as if it's the cause of all problems. But if you look closer, the real story isn't about who comes, but about the state's capacity to absorb and the speed at which things are pushed beyond that limit. Since 2015, Germany has received approximately 8.8 million immigrants. This number, for viewers, is not just a statistic. This means more people sharing housing, schools, transportation, and welfare, while the system's capacity doesn't expand quickly enough. Theoretically, Germany needs immigration. The population is aging and the workforce is shrinking. It is estimated that to avoid decline, Germany needs around 400,000 immigrants each year. But theory and life don't always go hand in hand. In 2015, Germany received over 440,000 refugees, and in 2016, the number was even higher. Accounting for approximately 60% of the total number of EU refugees during that period. By 2022, net immigration soared to around 1.5 million people, the majority of whom were Ukrainians. For the people, what they lost wasn't humanitarian principles, but rather, it's about time, smoothness, and a sense of fairness in accessing services. Integration, on paper, is a process. In real life, it's a very long distance. In the first 2 years, the average immigrant earns only about 55 to 60% of the income of native-born individuals. After 10 years, this number only approached 90%. During that time, the welfare system had to bear the difference. Another study showed that 41% of refugees, even after being in Germany for 6 years, still work in jobs below their skill level. What does that mean to you? It means that available resources are not being used effectively, while pressure on the system remains. And here's the most sensitive point. When two people are in the same line, one feeling they've contributed long enough, the other still in the support phase, if that line stands still, trust will begin to crack. A welfare state is always a delicate balance. It worked well until too many people were waiting at once, and no one was sure the queue was fair anymore. The question for you is this. In the area where you live, what changes first when the system is strained? Housing, healthcare, or schools? If you find what I'm saying accurately reflects your experience, you can leave a short comment. I read and considered it very carefully, and if you want to continue these kinds of conversations, subscribing to the channel is simply so we don't talk alone. But perhaps the most remarkable thing isn't the physical pressure, but it's the feeling that things are no longer being spoken directly. And it was there that the story began to take a different turn, no longer purely economic. There's a change that's very difficult to measure numerically, but if you live in Germany long enough, you'll feel it. People talk less. It's not because I don't have an opinion, and because they're not sure how to say it, where to say it, and to whom. In the bar, the story often stops halfway. At work, people change topics faster. Online, many people only read. They don't write. It's not fear in a dramatic sense, but it's a very ordinary form of self-censorship. Oh, why bother saying anything? It's just tiring. As the cost of living rises and the sense of security falters, what people need most are clear answers. It doesn't need to be perfect, just straight. But when slogans, stickers, or vague legal concepts are used instead, the natural human reaction is to become skeptical. Recent surveys show that a large percentage of Germans believe the current leadership lacks the ability to lead and is not doing a good job. For viewers, it's not just about liking or disliking someone. It's the feeling of no longer knowing who to trust to explain what's happening around you. Alongside this, there are increasingly heated debates about the boundaries of legal speech. Police searches related to online comments, whether legally right or wrong, have created a very specific feeling in life, that the line between speaking freely and getting into trouble is becoming more unpredictable than before. For someone who has lived through many political stages, this is not a shock, but it's a noteworthy sign. Because social trust doesn't disappear in the noise. It disappears in the silence. When people feel the system isn't listening, they stop engaging in dialogue with the system. They sought out other voices, not necessarily because they completely agreed, but because at least they felt heard. A thought-provoking statistic: concern about immigration has increased significantly, from approximately 67% to 86% in just 1 year. What does that say to you? It's not just a concern about a specific issue, Menina, but rather a lack of patience with how the issue is explained and handled. Here, there's no need to judge right or wrong. Just look at the mechanism. When trust declines, society doesn't immediately fall apart. It's fragmented. They told their side. Listen to what sounds familiar. Avoid conversations that used to be normal, a dry, sarcastic remark. Just one sentence, in a country famous for order. The hardest thing to find right now is a straightforward, unstrained conversation. I'm curious to know, do you find yourself considering your words more than you did a few years ago, at work, with family, or online? If so, you can leave a line. No need to argue, just for the record. And if you want to continue these kinds of analyses, slow, straightforward, and non-imposing, subscribing to the channel is just so we don't miss each other. Because once trust has thinned, the next question is no longer about economics or speech, but rather, how long can a society endure before it seeks to release pressure in another direction? There's a very German kind of impossibility, and it's not like collapse. You're still going to work. The ship is still running. The office is still open. The law is still clear. The only thing is, everything is a little harder, and that little bit repeats every day, until you're exhausted without knowing why. You start to see it in the little things. You get on the train, leave the city for a while, and the internet disappears. Some people describe it bluntly. On long train journeys in Germany, you might not have internet access for more than 70% of the time. It sounds like a convenience, but life is clear. You lose the ability to work, the ability to plan, and the feeling of being in control of your time. For people over 40, the most annoying thing isn't the lack of Wi-Fi, but rather the feeling that the system doesn't respect time. Then there's healthcare. Germany has good doctors. Everyone knows that. But if you're an ordinary person with ordinary insurance and want to see a specialist, you might have to wait 3 to 6 months. What do you lose? You've lost your peace of mind, losing the ability to process things quickly, and you start living with questions in your head longer than necessary. Traffic is not a disaster. It's just a general kind of tired. The trains are often late. Booking tickets close to the date is expensive, and people feel penalized for living a bit spontaneously. There's a very real-life example. A ticket booked in advance costs €30. But if you miss your train and buy another one on the same day, it can cost up to €160. What do you lose? You lose flexibility. Losing the ability to cope when life changes at the last minute. And life at this age is prone to last-minute changes. And then there's what makes things even heavier: regulations and permits. Some people say that in Germany, even to do many ordinary things. You need a permit: fishing, flying a drone, using a metal detector, and even cutting down trees on your own property. There's no need to argue right or wrong. Just look at the consequences. When everything requires procedures, every small issue takes time. Every small improvement is slow, and eventually people fall into a state of, "Oh well, let it be." A dry, sarcastic comment. Just one sentence. Germany makes machines that last 20 years, but sometimes it takes you 20 weeks to see the right doctor. I'd like to ask you a question to start a discussion. What tires you out the most? The high cost of living, or the small, repetitive frictions you encounter every day? You can leave a line. I read everything. If you find this type of analysis palatable, not preachy, not inflammatory, you can subscribe to the channel. Not to support, just so we can meet in the right place next time. And this is where we should pause for a moment, if it's not feasible because Germany fell, but because it became a life forever filled with friction. Then the ultimate question is, How long can humans endure that state before they choose a different path? If you look at the whole picture, perhaps what makes life in Germany impossible isn't a crash, but rather a persistent, repetitive, and increasingly unavoidable chain of friction. These three pieces do not exist separately. They amplify each other. First, housing. When supply is nearly inelastic, escalating costs will first strangle the middle class. Rental prices have increased by about 50% nationwide, and in major cities, they have risen by as much as 70% in some places. That doesn't just take away money, it takes away the ability to plan. When the roof becomes fragile, all other plans fall short. Second, income. The export model that once brought security is now vulnerable to competition, energy, and global cycles. Income is no longer plummeting like during a crisis, but the instability is enough to make people cautious. Certainty, once a hallmark, is thinning. Third, the system's absorption capacity. Since 2015, Germany has received approximately 8.8 million people. That number, plus a shortage of about 800,000 apartments, puts pressure on housing, healthcare, education, and ultimately, trust. When the queue gets long and explanations can't keep up, society doesn't explode, it's fragmented. Perhaps the question isn't whether Germany is good or bad, but rather, what happens when a nation built on stability can no longer sell stability to its own people? Entering 2026. Germany faces a very real dilemma. Can it be gradually reformed with old-fashioned discipline? Or will there be a political turning point because trust has worn thin? I don't have a conclusion for you, and perhaps no one should have it. If you find these analyses reflect what you're experiencing at work, in your neighborhood, or even within your own family, please leave a brief thought. No need to argue. Just for the record, if you want to continue the slow, straightforward, and non-slogan conversations, subscribing to the channel is just a way for us to meet again in the next episode. Finally, a small note. This is analysis, not advice. It's a description of mechanisms, not a call to action. Everyone has different experiences, and it's those differences that make the discussion worthwhile. We'll stop here. The rest, as always, is up to you.